I'm Justin Boyd.
I'm Brittany Pacheco.
Sir Tristan Cole. Not really. Just Sir Tristan.
And we are the Watchers in the Basement.
Welcome to the Watchers in the Basement. We are here tonight to discuss Season 2, Episode 2, House of the Dragon. We literally just watched the episode. We don't even know the episode title. In fact, before we get going here, let's just go around the room. What do you think is the episode title? Tristan, go to you first. Do you have any guesses, any suggestions, you think?
I absolutely do. Born Together.
Born Together.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
Very good. Brittany, you have a title?
I don't actually. That's actually very, I don't know how I could top what Tristan just said. Now, are you Tristan or Tristan? Like, I just want to know because, you know, we have Sir Eric and Sir Auric, which is not confusing at all. So, yeah.
Neither. In the spirit of George R.R. Martin, it'd be Tristan with a Y or something. So.
Yes.
Exactly.
Tristan.
Yeah.
Tristan. Yeah.
Adam with two D's. Yeah. Alan with only one A and a YN.
Y, yeah.
Yeah, no, I've got nothing for this title. I saw floating around Twitter what people were thinking this episode was going to be entitled, but it absolutely had nothing to do with this episode at all. The episode that was floating, episode title that was floating around was The Taking of Harrenhal, which that's probably going to be something of next week's episode based on the preview that we saw.
Yeah, I would think so. Harrenhal seemed like it was referenced maybe twice or something, but didn't seem like that was a big part of the episode. No. So I really do like Tristan's guess. I think his is probably closer to accurate, but mine, instead of like twin magic, I'd say twin tragic, because we lose the two Sir Eric with an A, Sir Auric, and Sir Eric with an E. I mean, a lot happened in this episode. Let's get right into it. Again, we want to be your post-game show for House of the Dragon, and we're jumping on. We haven't had time to really process all this, what happened, but a lot happened in this episode. Let's get into it. Overall thoughts. Tristan, what did you think about this episode?
I think a lot of people, you're going to see a lot of people describe this episode as slow. I said last week, I like slow episodes because that's where a lot of the sausage gets made. Yeah. And I think the best of what House of Dragon, I think, is tapping into in these first two seasons is a lot of what Game of Thrones got away from, which is like the backroom dealings, the interpersonal relationships. Got a little bit too focused on, the wars and the dragons and super visual stuff. Yeah. But it's the dialogue that like really pushes the story forward. I thought this was a good episode. Like, I think it's a great episode in the sense of seeing like how these, we already know that the Targaryen house is fractured. Like that's the whole premise of the show. But what this episode is showing is like the deeper fissures within each side, each faction of the Targaryen side. So I thought it was a great episode as far as pushing that overall theme forward. A lot happened, but a lot of the stuff is going to pay off later on this episode. Like obviously the ending we'll talk about, that's something that people can kind of gravitate to in the moment, but most of this stuff is going to play out later on, episode 3 and beyond. So, but overall, I liked the episode. I don't think it was one of the greatest ones in the first two seasons, but it's one we'll look back and say, okay, remember in episode 2 when this happened and that happened, like that really set this in motion. So, solid, I don't know, 6 or 7 out of 10, probably closer to 6, 6.5. Let's split the difference. 6.5 out of 10, good episode, but that might change after another rewatch. So I liked it.
Brittany, what about you?
Yeah, so for me, it's like Tristan said, it's a little slow pace. I know we're setting up foundation for the war to come because guess what, y'all? There is a big war known as the Dance of Dragons that had been referenced in Game of Thrones. So we're gearing up for that. Obviously, what's interesting comparing the episode to the book is that in the chapter that follows The Sun First Son, there's a lot that's happening. There's a lot of moving parts in which the show is taking things out of order compared to the book, but it's not hurting the story. Let me be the first to say that, which is fine. I'm okay with it. However, they're elaborating a lot more with specific characters that we don't get a whole lot of backstory with in the book. So, like for Helena, for example, Helena in this show has a lot more depth compared to that of her in the book. And so I like how they're making those changes to kind of make her seem like a person. She's not just someone who is a Targaryen who married her brother, who is now the king, that makes her queen, and she's just there to bear his children, what have you. No, they're actually like giving her some sort of substance, which I do appreciate. In the show, they're making her kind of like a dreamer, which is something that's part of the Targaryen line, which is cool. That hasn't really been fully explained. However, I'm okay with it. So what little we did get from the book that is shown in this episode is really just the fight between Sir Arik and Sir Eric. Everything else, I think it was pretty much just written by the writers. Sarah Hess, talking to you. We've got some issues. But anyway, I'm okay with this episode. It's still slow paced. I understand the purpose of it. The one thing I really draw issue, and there's no one out here, including Tristan, sorry, who's going to make me in favor of this Alicent Sir Criston Cole storyline. It's driving me up the wall. I want to murder this guy every single time I see him on the screen, and every time he opens his mouth, I want to wail on him like he did to Rhaenyra's paramour, from season 1. Like that's how like violent I get every time I see him on screen. So that being said, I probably would rank it about the same as Tristan's, a 6 out of 10.
Well, I'm way higher in this episode than y'all are. Last week, while I thought last week was a slow burn, this episode to me there was way more happening. Like that last week, like the problem I had with last week's episode is it all kind of built up to the kid death, which yes, the kid did die. I was wrong. I was kind of kidding, but the kid was of course killed. We see in this episode when he gets his head sewn back on, that's a choice to go open casket with the procession. But thinking about Game of Thrones over the years, probably a lot of the best scenes are just people talking in rooms, right? And that's what this episode was a lot of that. The problem with last week's episode is it was kind of build up to something of like, these little kids, they're not really characters yet. Like I couldn't pick them out of a lineup. And so you kill one of them off. And like, of course, a kid death is obviously supposed to hit you a certain way, but if you don't know the characters, it doesn't really matter that much. Whereas this week's episode, it's all the characters we saw in season 1, things happening to them. Otto losing his being, no longer the hand of the king, Criston Cole getting a promotion, the two twins who were on opposite sides of this battle, fighting each other to the death, and then the other one killing himself. Like there's a lot of payoff from the first season. And I don't know. I thought this was an excellent episode of Game of Thrones television. So let's get into just kind of the nitty gritty of it. As I mentioned, is it Jacaerys is the one that was killed?
Jacaerys, yes.
Jacaerys, okay.
I'm sorry, not Jacaerys.
Jacaerys is
Rhaenyra's oldest.
Rhaenyra's right. Okay.
Yeah.
Again, the naming these people, they gotta like mix it up. Like let's, come on, be original. Come on. So it opens up. The episode opens with Aegon is very upset that his son's dead, and he's declaring war, and he'll kill everyone. And Aegon blames Rhaenyra, and I just loved how it was like the episode picked up exactly where you'd want it to pick up after what happened in the previous episode. It wasn't days later, it wasn't months later or whatever. It's like literally the next day, and you get people obviously. Where was Cole? What was he doing on the night of the child's death? And then you have him blaming other people to cover for himself. I just love the, just kind of the backfighting that was in this episode. Tristan, what did you think about how the episode opened with, the aftermath of what happened in the first episode?
Man, I thought it was a great choice by the show to like further characterize Aegon, because it's the devil's in the details. Like if you really take really look at the dialogue that he's using describing how angry he is about his son's death. It's very little is about the son. It's about legacy. It's about his heir. It's about, looking weak among the council, among the realm, amongst the city. And it's not really about his son. We don't really get that emotion until the end. But yeah, like this is all about really like the dichotomy between like, angry father and petulant child at the same time. So like they're doing a really good job of like further characterizing Aegon. Again, you see more of the fissures. Like Aegon's not trusting the people around him. Like you said, people questioning Sir Kristen Cole and his whereabouts. Questioning, like the path forward. Like, of course, your younger faction within the Green side is looking for immediate action, and you have like the old guard, like, preaching patience and going forth that path. So I love how they open it because, again, it's going right into, hey, this thing happened, and now you see in real time, how people are split on what happens next. I thought it was a really good opening. Yeah, up in the acting. Because that scene leads right into Rhaenyra and Daemon, and like this good Lord, like that reminded me of like some Shakespeare stuff, like everything, like just like the vocal inflections, like the way they kind of moved around the set, like that was just A+ acting. Like if nothing else, like whatever you want to say about the writing or whatever the story, like the acting was on point between Daemon and Rhaenyra. So yeah, great, love the opening.
Couldn't agree more. My goodness. Like where I draw issue with the direction of certain storylines, not all, these actors can act, okay? And we are being given a magnificent performance. And Tristan, it's funny that you said what you said, because as soon as the scene between Daemon and Rhaenyra concluded, and we're seeing Daemon walk down the hall, I looked at John, my husband, and I'm like, that was some Shakespearean shit right there. Like, oh my God, that was just phenomenal. And I love seeing just the emotional range that they're both experiencing. Like she is finally calling him out on his crap. Like, you were overlooked for being the heir. You lost. It wasn't even yours, really, but you lost it. Do you accept me as your queen and ruler? To which he actually didn't really say yes or no, right? He just kind of avoided answering. But he gets equally emotional, equally mad. He tries to remind her, hey, did I not put that crown upon your head? Yes, but before, you also left me hanging, literally, when she was giving birth, and he's like interpreting her words as a way, hey, we're going to go to war. He wants to be in control. Daemon wants to serve Daemon only, but he'll use other people around him in order to get whatever it is that he wants. It was a very emotional conversation, and especially when they both bring in Viserys into the fold about how he did not trust his own brother. And Daemon retorts with, well, your father used you as a tool. Like, it's just pinning so much against one another. And you're starting to see, of course, the drift of their marriage, which will kind of, play out more so for the rest of the season. So it's the opening scene, just as Tristan talked about, was incredible. Aegon is very similar to Daemon. He's kind of about himself, legacy. But I tell you, that scene between Rhaenyra and Daemon was just masterful. I will go back and rewatch this episode because of that alone. However many minutes that was, that right there deserves an Emmy.
And, much like last week where Rhaenyra only had one line and she was kind of only in a couple of scenes, Daemon is only in this one scene, I believe, right? I think we see him fly off on his dragon, but that's it. So it's not a lot of Matt Smith for this episode, but he definitely put in the work in the the short period of time he was on screen. Talking about just how people are using talking about Viserys and how he used Rhaenyra and how, the back and forth, you got to kind of, I just want to point out how, despite the tragedy, Otto Hightower is not going to miss out on an opportunity. So he's going to try to, let's use this kid being killed to our advantage, and we're going to play it up and try to curry favor with the realm, and we're going to have this funeral procession that we're going to show off the grieving queen mother, or the grieving queen who's the mother of the child, and her mother, and I thought that was very obviously horrible thing to do, but smart strategic play. There's a part where they hit a pothole, and I was like, well, obviously there might be in Houston, because we have a ton of those in our fair city.
I knew you were going to make that kind of joke.
Yeah, definitely reminded me of a Houston moment. But when the wagon gets stuck, I thought the wagon was going to tip over. I thought the kid's head was going to fall off. I was very surprised when that didn't happen. Tristan, am I just perverse because of years of watching Game of Thrones, or do you think they missed an opportunity with that?
I'm glad they didn't. I said to my wife, please don't let this kid's head.
I agree, but it seemed that was going to happen.
The point of that, now that I'm thinking about it, this is off the head, but I think the point of that pothole was there's so many omens. Allison said that to Helena, there's bad omens. Or she said it to Aegon. The dragon flew out. All these things happen. People see these as bad omens, and there's so many warning signs that super bad shit is about to happen, and it's not just going to happen to the royal family, but it's going to happen to everyone. That's kind of how I viewed it. I thought, if anything, I that was probably one of my biggest quibbles about this particular episode, was just not the whole scene, but that pothole stuff. I wanted it to be more clear, at least, what the payoff of, what was the point of the pothole?
Yeah.
Was it just to show hey, Helena's essentially panicking? Is she seeing a vision? Is it reminding her of something? I know she's looking at the whatever the fuck they're throwing, sand, I don't know, dust, confetti, not
grain, maybe. I'm not sure. Is there strange? Yeah.
Whatever they were throwing down, she's looking at it it has some type of visceral reaction. So I wanted to see what the payoff of that was, but I maybe that's one of those, up to your own interpretation thing.
I mean, that wasn't the only time that we saw a lot of close up of small particles, because there was a scene that played out afterwards with Rhaenyra. She's playing with her boys, her Aegon and Viserys, and she's looking out, towards the window, and the sun's coming in. And you see the particles in the air just kind of floating around. And so I'm not quite sure entirely the purpose of either scenes, especially focusing on these particles. The fact that this scene is not in the book, I thought was an interesting choice to showcase the political movement of Otto Hightower, right? And it's brilliant, actually, because it just shows how every move that he makes is for a reason. It's for a purpose. It's for a gain of, House Hightower and House Targaryen, the Greens. And it also kind of seems appropriate, I would think, in that time, to honor, quote unquote, the prince that died, however horrific it may be. This was one choice I think that the showrunners and writers were able to pull off. I am a little curious too about that pothole, just because I believe it foreshadows a pothole in their plans, and the shortcomings of their plans, what have you. They're going to get stuck, obviously, and who knows, maybe that could have even foreshadowed the fact that Aegon cut out his grandfather and said, hey, you're not a hand anymore. And so maybe with Otto removed from the King's Council, then you're really going to start seeing things fall apart, because Aegon is just moving with impulse, anger. It's not going to be good for the Greens. Or
maybe it's foreshadowing to Dany years later, where she talks about breaking the wheel, because you break the wheel, you don't have to worry about the pothole, right? You just, I don't know. Gotta say something here. Tristan, you mentioned about Helena in that moment where they focused on her and she's, like freaking out. What did y'all think about after the funeral? Obviously, it's traumatic for everyone involved, but Helena and Aegon pass each other on the steps, and they just kind of look at each other and then just keep on moving. It looks like she was kind of waiting to, I don't know, be embraced by him or something, but she doesn't get that. They just kind of give each other a look, and then he keeps going down or she keeps going up. What was the symbolism there, you think, Tristan?
I mean, it's a number of things. They're not an intimate couple like that, like it's emotionally, and that in the book, not trying to be the book person, but in the book, like it's talked about, that there's not like that real connection between them, and you can tell even in season 1, like that's something that she at least craves, at least enough of, like it's very well known his exploits with other women, forced or unforced, but there's not like that connection. There's no emotional connection between that. Aegon may blame her, for the death of his son, pointing out the actual, who the actual son was. So it's a lot of stuff, Aegon not knowing how to process his emotions, that he eventually does at the end of this episode. And, looking at Helena is a reminder of what, they have lost. And he doesn't know how to deal with that. Like he's, again, a petulant child made king. And he doesn't have to. So he can just kind of walk around, walk past it like nothing's happened. So another one of those up to your interpretation things.
And that's also on the heels of Aegon having murdered Blood, right? Blood, who was the former gold cloak who had been captured, trying to leave the keep with or King's Landing with the severed head, and he was taken into the cells and questioned, and he gave up information. And Larys Strong, who is kind of serving the king, if you will, says to the guy, hey, like, I'm not going to hurt you, but I can't speak for the king. And the king walks in with, a blunt instrument and commits crimes. And again, this is the encounter between the two, the king and the queen, is on the heels of what he had just done. So, knowing that he did what he did, sees his sister wife, queen, like what would you say? What could you say? Right. And also, Aegon has never liked the traditions of the Targaryen. He never liked the idea of having to marry his sister in order to, keep up with tradition and be ruler or whatnot. So it's awkward. It goes without saying. It's just blatantly awkward. Aemon has always been kinder and probably loves Helena more so than Aegon ever would. But for Helena, she kind of like sees, after Aegon walks past her, she kind of just like nods her head and like, okay, like that's all I'm going to get, and keeps on going. I mean, she knows her role, I guess you could say, and she accepts it. She made that much clearer at that last family dinner when King Viserys was still alive, and they're doing all the toasts. And she's like, being married's not so bad. Like, he'll ignore you most of the time and blah, blah, blah. Like she's accepted. She's accepted her role and everything. And why would this be any different?
Can we talk real quick about Aegon's first of many like idiotic decisions?
Where do we start, Tristan?
So Otto Hightower has, for the moment, for what needs to be done, I think he had a great political play of like currying favor with the small folk, the rest of the realm, by, having that funeral procession through the streets of King's Landing. You see people, the small folk, coming to their side, offering condolences. And then Aegon goes and hangs all the rat catchers, when he could have taken Blood, had him point out who the one rat catcher was, hung his ass, and like now you have, again, you've ruined so much of the good favor, and you're gonna need that good favor. When you have the same family warring with each other, And eventually that other family is going to come and say, hey, this is our throne, and you're going to need those people. And it's, again, like Otto said later in the episode, like it's the inability to see the long view it's going to make them regret these horrible, horrible, horrible missteps.
You're absolutely correct. I mean, Aegon is proving to be very similar in ways, not exactly, to that of Joffrey, whom we're very familiar with in Game of Thrones. Joffrey ruled with cruelty, and Aegon, yes, horrible events happened with his son, and it wasn't so much that's my son, it's that's my legacy, that is my heir to the Iron Throne. And yes, I'm sure he at the very end did feel some type of way, finally was able to process and be that vulnerable even by his lonesome. But to instill fear into that of his I was going to say constituents, what the hell, that of his people, that just goes to show that he wants to rule the way that he sees fit, in the sense of fear, cruelty. He wants to not be seen weak. And how do you make that happen? You go above and beyond and do horrible, nefarious things in order to make sure that the people do not view you as such.
Yeah. And so, like you mentioned, Blood and Cheese, who were big characters in the first episode, both die in episode 2. Thankfully, Cheese's dog survived. They showed the dog, which I thought was a pretty
okay.
Awesome shot.
Okay. Earlier in the chat, Yesenia here put the dog. We care. That was the one scene that we all cared about, because y'all know I felt some type of way about Cheese kicking that poor dog. Like, oh my God, why? By the way, y'all, shout out to those that are in the chat today. King B. Johnson, Yesenia. We also have Amber of All of Amber's Wands here, and Tracy. Thank y'all so much for being here. Please share with us your thoughts, your questions. We absolutely love having y'all here to interact with.
Yes, we do. Good to have some extra discussion that we can tap into here and there. So to transition from Cheese's dog to Kristen Cole, let's just get to this guy. This guy is
that bitch.
He's not a fan favorite. I'll put it that way. But again, he got a promotion in this episode. I did not see that coming. I know I'm not a book reader. I haven't read the text like y'all have, so I was definitely surprised. I thought that Larys Strong was kind of, angling and had his sights set on that hand job. Wow, I almost said something really bad. Not even.
Whoa there, buddy.
Remember, he's into feet, not hand.
There we go. There we go. He was looking for a feet job. Just so, wow. What? So Larys Strong not going to be the hand of the king, but he does have. I guess my question I'll start with Tristan with this. I mean, Larys Strong's not going to like the fact that now Kristen Cole is the hand, I would think, considering he's also got his hooks in Alicent, which the feet guy likes her also. So
no, he doesn't have his hooks in Alicent. He's got his hands in Alicent. All right, let's just be real.
Yeah, and we see some of that at the end of the episode. But so I mean, obviously, I think y'all kind of know what's going to happen. But I don't know. I was surprised to see that Kristen Cole got that job. I didn't see that job coming his way.
I mean, it shouldn't. Like, Aegon is primed to impulsive, like gargantuanly stupid decisions. Like, and this is just one in a very, 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 very long set of bad decisions that he's going to make. It's impetuous. Like, he's already being manipulated by Larys Strong, who I don't think would want the hand of the king. At least not at the junction, because he works best in the shadows. He works best, manipulating different people at a time, or at least, using people as angles. And it's harder to do that with hand of the king when you're out in the open, and you have to be the face of the realm of the kingdom, and he just doesn't want that. nor do I think he really can be at this particular point, because he's also a cripple. And you need respect for such a job, such a hand job. But again, Kristen Cole and Aegon, they are on the same page as far as like vengeance, for different reasons. So Aegon, who also does not like Otto Hightower reading him for the filth that he is, invoking, his father, who felt the same way. And I'm sure he already knows that his mother just holds him in all kinds of contempt. So like, he's looking at the complete side, like, this is not the path that I want to go towards. It's too much patience, too much logic. I need immediate action. And you see Otto and Allison later, like, kind of bemoaning that. It's like, these kids, same shit we say now about these kids. Like, man, these kids, they can't focus, like, they don't listen, so on and so forth. And that was just that version. No, it shouldn't surprise you. Literally everybody in the show is making horrible decisions for one reason or another, and this is just another example.
Yeah, definitely Aegon. He's definitely a man of action. He says that he wishes to spill blood, not ink, which was a shot at Otto later in the episode. And but his new guy Cole has a plan. He put it
real quick. Same thing Joffrey said to Tywin in different words.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, they're paralleling a lot of Aegon to that of Joffrey, and then Otto to maybe that of Tywin Lannister. And I just have to say, before we move further into Kristen Cole and all his endeavors, the scene of Otto Hightower coming into the king's bedchamber while Sir Kristen Cole is there, and he's just letting Aegon have it. And with Kristen like trying to step in and say something, and all my ACOTAR people out there, y'all know what I'm referring to when I say this, have care of how you speak to the king. There's a similar line in the third book of ACOTAR. Anyway, I love how Otto just like spun on Kristen. He's like, the king is my grandson, and my grandson's a fool, and blah, blah, blah. I mean, he just finally like let loose. Like, he finally just unleashed everything that he has been bottling up inside of him. He's had obviously this desire to put a Hightower, albeit half, on the throne, because that empowers his house, obviously. And so he wanted to have control in some capacity, or all the capacity. But seeing Rhys Ifans give a master class of everything that we saw in that scene, I again was taken aback, very similar to that of Daemon and Rhaenyra earlier in the episode. So I had to just say something about that, of course. And seeing just the dynamic of all of it. It's like, dude, like, you're the one who has orchestrated this whole thing. You were handed the king. You put your daughter in the king's bed. You wanted to ascend your grandson and make all this happen. Now you're having to reap what you sowed. So fuck you. Anyway.
Well, we saw Otto lose his job. I thought he was going to lose his head. I thought that Kristen Cole's first act as the Hand of the King, and he's also the Lord Commander. Is he? I mean, he has like two roles. Is he like interim or something? Is it like, how does this work?
So, I mean, with Kristen Cole becoming Hand of the King, yes, that does occur in the book. I just don't remember it happening this quickly, honestly. But I don't remember him carrying dual roles as both Commander of the King's Guard as well as being Hand. Tristan, do you have a better recollection than I do?
By the time in the book, if I'm remembering correctly, by the time he essentially gets Hand of the King, man, all these rules out the fucking door. Like, it's just so much chaos going on and it's so many roles are changing on both sides. Like, there's so much change happening that it's like, this is a shit show. And just a lot of shit just starts riding. So as far as my recollection, yeah, he does hold both roles, but
okay. It's
so decimated, like the institution of the realm is so decimated that it's just like, okay, this is another series in a set of like chaotic shit that's happening in this war.
Mm-hmm. Real quick in the chat, y'all. I just want to highlight some of our audience members' comments here. Imperion, formerly Blue Wolf, says, "I feel no pity for Otto, but he was 100% right when he was scolding Aegon. Aegon is a literal fool for what he did." And I gotta give this shout out to Amber because she knows. Don't care how closely he quotes Akatar. Yes, I agree. And she also says that she thinks that Otto, wanted his blood on the throne and didn't care in what way, who it was, etc. Couldn't agree more. Definitely couldn't agree more.
He
and
thought he can control, just like Tywin thought he can control Joffrey, and you can't give a tiger a crown
and be tamed at the same time. Yeah, no, I get it.
Yeah, and one of the things that that whenever Otto encounters Cole and Aegon, he one of the things that Aegon says is that Cole, he's a man of action. He's put a plan in place right now. He's sent Sir Eric to go and slay Rhaenyra. And I just want to back up a little bit. Let's talk about
Eric. Sir
no,
Eric. Yes.
It's E, right?
No, Eric's with Rhaenyra. Auric is with Aegon.
Okay.
Trust me.
Because at the end,
okay.
I have the book in front of me, Justin. Don't don't challenge me.
If you had the caption on,
I did. Yeah.
At the end, when he says "Your Grace" before he kills himself, it's Sir Eric.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So, my question. I don't even know what the question is going to be.
Sorry.
No, let's talk about Cole and one of the twins, whichever one it was.
Auric.
Yeah, take it away. Talk about that. Cole, obviously, he deserves some blame, but he's going to push it off on someone else. So go for it.
Him going to Auric and just trying to pick a fight, it seems. I mean, he messed up. He knows he done messed up. He's sleeping with the Dowager Queen, and he failed in his duty as commander of the Kingsguard. He didn't protect the family, but just like any person would ever do, instead of accepting accountability, you're going to deflect and find fault with somebody else. And that's exactly what he does with Auric. Auric, who minding his own business, eating, but his white cloak is soiled, right, with dirt or whatever, and that pisses off Kristen, and it goes into this more elaborate conversation about how this is what represents us and our vows, and if we sully our cloaks and everyone will know, and blah, blah. I'm like, well, that's the pot calling the kettle. I'm like, what were you doing last night when the young prince was murdered, Kristen? Like, are we really going to do that? And so I was telling this to Tristan off. Wow, y'all's names are really similar. Just dawned on me. Sorry. I was talking with Tristan about this before we jumped on here, about how if the direction of this story between Kristen, Cole, and Allison is to just annoy people and piss people off, they're being very successful, because it's gotten me all types of way pissed off, right? And how, it just, I don't think it's necessary. I understand why they're doing it. It just really irritates the fire out of me. Tristan, please take it away.
Again, on these things, I like to take the broader view. If you're Allison, well, first of all, let's kind of start with what they're doing is wrong, stupid, and going to lead to more issues. Get that out of the way. On the second thing, what would you do if your Queen Dowager, husband's dead? He's the only man that you've been with, unfortunately, like horribly, since teenager. You've been with this man since you're a teenager, and have had to lay in a bed with this old ass rotten guy. For years, and now he's dead. Your kids are outside of Helena, fuck asses, in different ways, who keep fucking shit up. You've been trapped in this castle essentially since you were 12 to 14, depending on what we're looking at the age. So like, yeah, you're gonna need some type of companionship, right? And who else? Allison also knows that Sir Kristen Cole is willing to break those vows. She knows about he and Rhaenyra, from decades before. So yeah, like he's insecure about, not getting what he wanted from Rhaenyra, like the insecurities that came from breaking his vow the first time. Like he's vulnerable, she's vulnerable, like they're put in a chaotic situation, and people tend to gravitate towards each other during like chaotic situations. So like it's not surprising, but it's so many of the horrible decisions that are being made are understandable decisions, but it's just like, hey, you still can't make that bad decision. But I also understand why you're making said bad decisions. So like, I'm not surprised. And also like the show is capitalizing on the fact that Sir Kristen Cole is not a fan favorite. Like people hate him. And like that also draws, more people to that particular plot line in that story. So no surprise at all. Like it would surprise me more if Allison was not fucking somebody in that castle. Like, what are you gonna do? Like, what do you say?
Yesenia in the chat says, "Be a grandmother."
She's like
Allison, be a grandmother.
It's like 28.
Hey, listen.
Mama's gotta have a life too. Like
she understood. She understood what her father was asking her. I say willingly, loosely, don't come at me, people. She accepted it, right? She performed her duty. Now, did she really love Viserys? Okay, maybe she did in her way, or over time she did. Yes. She loves her children. I will not deny that whatsoever. She loves her children. She loves her grandchildren. But then why at the end of the episode, after all that's played out, him being away from his post because he was abed with Alicent, why would he be in her bedroom about to do you want to have history repeat yourself? Do you want for the people to come after the baby girl? I mean, make it make sense, people. Make it make sense. Amber here in the chat makes an interesting point about the reason for Jaehaerys's death was most likely why there weren't any guards was because Cole and Allison sent everyone away so they could bang, which allowed an opportunity for Blood and Cheese to enter the keep.
It's the guilt that draws them to each other as well.
Yeah, that's understanding, but it's like, okay, cool. Like we just had a really horrible thing happen. We're down one heir, and now Aegon has found himself in the exact same situation as Viserys did, where his only child, a female. I mean, Aegon, are you going to name your only child? Because in the book, there's 3. There's a total of 3 kids. There is one more son, but we don't have that in the show. So Aegon, what are you going to do? What are you going to do, Aegon? What are you going to do?
Well, I mean, he's also still pretty young, right? He's like, how old is
he?
Do
you think his sister queen is going to want to fuck him after what just happened?
I don't know. I can't read any of these people. They don't, I mean, it's the very messed up family, obviously, but like with Alicent, like, is she that plugged into the family? I mean, at the end of the episode, we see Aegon's crying and she kind of just like walks upon it and bounces like she doesn't care. And I mean, you sense that she loves her children and grandchildren. There's not a lot of evidence to that for me. I mean,
she wanted her child to ascend the throne over Rhaenyra.
Well, but that's not love. That's love for power, right? That's thirst for power more than it is like loving your family, I would think.
I think it's more fear. I think it's more fear of not having power. Right. What can happen to her and her family that mostly over actions.
Perhaps Alicent doesn't care for Aegon as strongly as she does for Helena. I think that much could be agreed upon.
That's 1,000% correct.
Yeah.
Well, and I think also, Alicent, she learned a lot about not getting love from her dad, because we see also toward the end of the episode that, she wants to confess to someone, I guess, about her dalliances with Kristen Cole. and he doesn't want to hear anything. He doesn't want to hear anything. Being Otto. So obviously she was a pawn in Otto's plan. So it's not like there's not a lot of love in that Hightower side of the family. Not that the Targaryens have a ton of love either, but the Hightowers are not the happy family.
I would argue that Targaryens probably have a lot more love amongst their family than the Hightowers did. Hightowers, it's everyone's a piece on the chessboard to gain some kind of power. Well, because finally we have a mention of the younger Darren. Thank you. Finally, I was wondering whether or not how he was going to be introduced, because they hadn't made mention of him at all in season 1. So I'm like, he's going to have a role in this. So yeah, I'm glad they finally made mention of Darren.
Just real quick, like if you look at the contradiction, the juxtaposition between Alicent and Rhaenyra, like Rhaenyra chose her family, for the most part. Like she chose who she wanted to have a child with, for the most part. Even when she was forced to get married, like she, got around that. Like Alicent, since she was, 14, 15 years old, it's been like, it was placed upon her. Like, you're going to marry him. Like she was manipulated to marry Viserys. These kids she did not want. Like, you just got to, Helena, like I think she tried her best with Helena. I think even Aemon, I think Aegon is just like the extreme version, just a really, really shitty child. And it kind of dampens how she feels about her family as a whole. But yeah, that's juxtaposition there.
Yeah, that's absolutely fair. In the book, it's written that Aegon is the one who looks similar to Alicent out of all the children. So I think maybe for her, it's seeing a lot of herself in him, and it's not good. It's not good.
Yeah. And speaking of Alicent's children, let's talk about Aemond, who, again, not a big role in this episode, but we do see him at a pleasure den is what they call it in these times. And I do like how he's kind of like, he says that, he's proud that Daemon considers him such a foe that he sent, assassins to have him killed, which, interesting conversation when you're like naked with a prostitute to talk about your, what is Daemon to Aemon?
Daemon to Aemond is his uncle.
Okay.
Yeah, because Viserys is Aemon's father, which would make Daemon his great uncle. No, uncle. No, uncle. It's just uncle. Yeah, you're right. It's all very confusing.
Yeah, it is. I need a map. I need a org chart or something, a family tree.
Yeah.
To figure out all the things that are happening.
But then also, Daemon would also be his brother-in-law because Rhaenyra is his sister. Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. Needless to say, I think that the reason why they have this scene is because obviously Aemond and Daemon are very similar characters, and I'm guessing potentially we get to see those two face off. Tristan, what are your thoughts on just this scene of Aemond? Because he's only in like maybe 2 scenes the whole episode. I think he finds a bloody coin at the beginning of the episode, and then we have this scene I just mentioned.
Again, another show creation. I think I know I've never really truly bought into like the Aemon and Daemon are like the same character. I think Aemon is a little bit more thoughtful. I think Aemon is more willing to like listen to reason. Like even if he has his own angle, he's not as impulsive. Like he did talk about like, losing his temper, obviously. Horrible move at the end of season 1. But for the most part, he's an observant, semi-thoughtful kid. I thought that scene was interesting, like just seeing the vulnerability. And I think this is off one watch, is meant to kind of counteract against Aemon, who's sitting there crying at the end of the episode and like not getting that love, not getting that guidance, not having somebody to confide to. man, this really does make Allison look bad. But like, now I think about it, because Damon, neither of her sons feel like they can confide in her, and maybe that says something about them as well. But everyone's looking for somebody to like express their feelings to. Even Helena, like she's looking for somebody to express how she's feeling, and Allison is so, she's so. Damn it, what's the word I'm looking for? She's so worried about like this impending war and, supporting her father and trying to control Aegon that the mother part is missing right now, in certain ways. So that's really what I got out of it, is mostly Aemon just needs somebody to confide to. And he is willing to like at least hold himself accountable for like his stupid actions in ways that his brother just simply will not. And that's, gonna be the downfall of a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean, he does mention he regrets, what happened to Luke, which that's kind of a surprising omission, or that he admitted that, given how that really kind of started all of this.
Well, but at the end of season 1, after Vhagar completely took out Luke and Arrax, there was that look on Aemon's face of like, oh shit, what did I just do? And it was that recognition alone told me that there was going to be some sort of remorse or some sort of like acknowledgement or acceptance of like, it's because I did a stupid thing, right? But then in the premiere episode of season 2, he was just kind of like, yeah, I did this, whatever, no big deal. But I think on the front, Aemon, depending on who he's around, he has to appear to be one thing. But then in private, he, like what's I think being said here is that he does care. Like he does have some sort of like affection or empathy, sympathy towards events that have occurred. So, and that's maybe what makes him slightly different from Daemon in a way, because I think they are similar, but they are radically different in the choices that they've made in their lives. Daemon, I saw something on Twitter and it made me laugh, and I think it's completely accurate. Daemon, his love languages are, forehead touching, speaking high Valyrian and committing crimes. So I'm just like, that's pretty spot on with Daemon. Aemon, I think it was because of impulsive, poor decision making out of anger that led to the death of his nephew. But he was like, yeah, I feel terrible about it. I don't know if I could say the same for Daemon, because he was really trying not to take ownership for his actions and his words to cheese and blood. So,
I mean, he did admit it was a mistake.
So, yeah, but was he remorseful about it though?
No, whose mistake? Was it his mistake or was it Blood and Cheese's mistake?
Well, because so what everyone needs to understand here, because this show is referencing the book Fire and Blood and the chapters that we're reading here specifically, is that the chapters of the Dance of the Dragons are from two different people's perspectives, right? You've got on one hand a maester who is recording the so-called true histories of the events that occurred, and then you have Mushroom, who was like a dear what's the word that I'm looking for? Confidant of Rhaenyra's. And so there's different interpretations to these different events. So it's written in such a way where the reader has to decide what is real and what isn't. And that's basically, kind of what's happening in the show, but the show seems to be leaning more towards one account versus the other. But still, it's meant for you to decide, especially with Daemon. Is it because did Daemon give the order to kill one of Aegon's children or not? Because it's not written like that. I mean, there was no confirmation either in the book. So, yeah, it's kind of like the same thing what happened to Daemon's wife from Runestone. The show showed him as him perhaps giving the order to have her be killed. But in the book, it's kind of like Daemon saw her and then she died. You just don't know. You just don't know.
And another character that Daemon is connected to is Massaria, which we didn't talk about her in the first episode. She was only in it briefly, but we got to see more of her. She has a scene with Rhaenyra, and it also seems like she kind of tried to warn Rhaenyra when she noticed the other twin was coming for her. Tristan, I'll go to you. Massaria, the actress who plays her, I don't have her name in front of me, but I know last season or the first season, her accent wasn't great. It almost seemed like you had all these actors who were really giving it their all, and then she was like in like an SNL parody of Game of Thrones. It seems like her accent is not as bad this year. It doesn't bother me as much. What do you think about the character so far this season?
I don't know. A lot of what I think about the character is already clouded about what I know about her in the overall story.
Right.
So, she's going to play a huge role in the story going forward. What I think about her, I do like the humanizing of her that we don't get in the book. Like, she is human, and I think that helps to clear up her action a lot, because I don't remember. I haven't done a full rewatch of season 1 again, but I don't know if I don't remember them tying a specific location of where she was from. They didn't really give her a backstory. So having that backstory of where she's from helps them kind of center the accent, if that makes sense. If you're, long time Game of Thrones watcher, certain parts in Essos have specific accents. So I think they gave her 5 different accents last season. So that helps. But I do like the humanizing of her. I do like that she's trying her best to say, hey, I do this shit because it's transactional. This isn't about loyalty. This isn't about, I don't give a fuck about the Hightows. I really don't give a fuck about the Targaryens. She said, basically she profited off of an inevitability. Once Viserys died, and there was always going to be a question about the lineage, who's his heir, and who will the realm accept as his heir. So yes, she profited off of that inevitable conflict, and I think she's trying to impress upon that to Rhaenyra, hey, this is completely business. And I think I like what she said about so much of what she was doing was in service of men, and even though she was trying to profit herself, it was always in service of men, because she believed that, hey, I offer this thing, so these men will take care of me, or at least have my back in some type of way. And that's the bigger message that she's trying to get across to Rhaenyra. I don't know if it's directly or indirectly or intentionally or unintentionally, but hey, if you're Rhaenyra and you feel like you're queen, then you have to be queen, and it has to be fuck this other dude. You can't live in service of him because you can't depend on him, right? And they're kind of sharing in certain ways through looks with Rhaenyra and through words with say her name again. I just forgot.
Massaria.
Sorry, that was Massaria. It's hey, you cannot depend on these guys. Your survival, your path to whatever it is that you're trying to achieve is going to come through your own labor and not from depending on Daemon.
Go for it, Brittany.
I mean, yeah, I think Tristan said all of that extremely well. She will have a role to play in this war that's about to, unfold. I thought it was kind of weird, though. I mean, obviously, her finally being released on Rhaenyra's order, because she said to Rhaenyra, by the way, that scene too between these two individuals was incredible. The back and forth, and Rhaenyra basically saying I don't know if I can trust you. You're more of an asset to me here than if I free you. But if you say Daemon gave you his word that if you do this one thing, he'll release you, then I'm going to honor that. So Massaria is on her way to the docks. She's seeing people come up from the docks and notices Sir Auric when she has already seen Sir Eric, who is inside Dragonstone. And she says a moment to the guard that's walking her to the docks. And I'm like, okay, but that didn't go anywhere because I don't think it's like she warned anybody like, hey, I don't know. That's just one little weird thing to me that happened that really didn't pay out in my opinion, but it's neither here nor there. This isn't the last of Massaria. I'm glad that they finally sorted out the accent because that was also something that bothered me too. It was giving very, Caribbean, but it was like very like noticeably different countries from the Caribbean mixed into one. So, but cool. Yeah, they kind of figured her out, and yeah, this is definitely not going to be the last of her.
It was, however, the last of our twins, our dueling knights. Tristan, what did you think about this fight scene? I thought it was a pretty, as far as like for an episode that didn't have a lot of action, I think this fight scene kind of delivered the action in a big way.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of the things that the entire episode is building towards. Like I said, most of the other things the episode is building towards, we'll see later in the season. But like horrible decisions, impulsive decisions led, Kristen Cole sending Sir Eric to Dragonstone. I don't know what I'm looking forward to in this story, in this series, in this season, because it's all bad. Like there's nothing to look forward to. So knowing that this was coming, and knowing that the whole episode was set up towards at the end, it is dreading because it is a tragic story. It reminds me of what the prostitute said to Eamon. It's like, hey, one person's decisions affects other people, like usually the smaller folk, usually people without the power to say no. And Eric did not have the power to say no to Kristen Cole, even though he knew it was a brain dead decision and that it was going to end in his death one way or another. So like, again, it demonstrates when there's an absence of like centralized competent power, like these are the things that happen. Kristen Cole is out here running plays. It's like, sir, that is not your job to run plays. So you don't call the plays. You execute the plays. Like, simple as that. When you don't have that centralized competent power, the ripple effects, right? And Sir Eric and Eric is like part 3 on the ripple effect of what, will eventually become the Dance of the Dragons. But God, like, in what world is that a good decision? You know what I'm saying? Like, you're sending them alone.
Right.
I mean, he got in there, sure. But like so many things would have to go right for that to happen. And the only thing that's happened is you're down a very skilled knight, a King's Guard. And you further set this war into motion while also losing a key asset. Like, it's completely stupid. All because he was projecting like his own insecurities onto Sir Eric. So it's a cringeworthy. It was cringeworthy, honestly, for being real. Now, I will say quick, again, my last mention of the book. I was expecting a bigger spectacle. I was expecting a much bigger spectacle as it happens in the book. Like, there's a battle, you know what I'm saying? And there's a lot of people there watching that in the book. Like, so we didn't get that. I did think that the way that they kind of changed it for this episode did work, though. So once I got over my expectations, it's like, yeah, it makes sense that he would sneak in and, they would fight it out there. But Rhaenyra, you got to do something, love. You can't just be sitting there waiting for a fucking fight. Come on. I know you.
Well, she doesn't have the cat's paw. She can't, protect herself. She doesn't have cat's paw because it's with Aegon right now.
Well,
so.
You're at war, sweetheart. Like, let's keep something in your pillow. But overall, I thought it was a great fight scene. Great scene. I loved it.
Yeah.
It does certainly play out differently in the show than in the book. And I will say this is another change that I did appreciate because Sir Auric, who comes from King's Landing, he does know Dragonstone, because I think to the average viewer, you're probably thinking like, how the hell does he know where to go? And how can he, go about the castle on Dragonstone if he really hasn't been there, but he has. because of his time with Viserys as king. And so I liked how the twins were kind of circling each other without really fully being aware that well, for Eric, he's not aware that Arik is there, right? But they're kind of circling each other, which I think was pretty cool. It was a neat choreography to have. The fight scene certainly does not take place in Rhaenyra's chambers. It happens. One account says it happened out in the open. The clashing of the steel woke up many people who did witness this. It lasted for like an hour. That's on one account. The other account suggests that it was short and nasty, that there was no claim for love for one or the other, that it was kind of bloody. So what we kind of got was a combination of the two accounts, which I think played out very well. I think it was good. Now the difference being too, that one did die immediately due to the wounds, but the other died I think days later, unless I got that wrong. But either way, it's something that was, I think, done very well, because even at one point I got really confused. I'm like, which one is which? And at the very end, you'll see that Rhaenyra says Sir Eric, but it was actually Sir Arik, and he was the one who drove the knife through his belly, or I'm sorry, the sword through his belly. And because in the book it says that Sir Arik did not undertake this mission happily. He knew it was going to be at stake. He knew probably that he was going to encounter his brother, and it was going to be to the death. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously meant to be confusing when they're fighting, because they're identical twins. But I mean, that also adds to the stakes, though, because then you don't know, like, well, who, or is one of them pretending to be the other one, and then I think the action worked really well. Hearing y'all talk about the different settings in the book, I do kind of like this. I like the fact that it happened right in front of Rhaenyra. That kind of makes it. That kind of adds the stakes from my perspective. But yeah, once again, like we build up to like one kind of climactic like fight or action scene to end the episode. Before we wrap up here, just a couple little quick things. The Valerians did not get a ton of run. They each kind of get a little scene here and there. Tristan, is there something you want to highlight from those characters that, I mean, like literally they only get a couple of lines that I guess will be paid off in later episodes, but was there anything interesting that we should pick up on from what those characters put out there?
For me, it's the pillow talk.
Okay.
Corlys and Rhaenys, like they've always been on one accord about what's happening on both sides of the conflict, the weaknesses and strengths of each side, each leader.
Mm-hmm.
They are two of the most important characters in the story, because one, they're respected, from a lot of people. They have a lot of influence, and they're also able to kind of see the shitstorm before it happens, even when they're involved in it. So like I would always pay attention to like the looks that Rhaenys is giving, like the look she gives to Daemon. She knows that he ordered, or she knows that he had something to do with Jaehaerys, his beheading. She reads through him very easily, and the big thing that she said, which was a repeat from episode 1, is like, he's not the king. With that, you were the king, like you're not the king. And that is something that Rhaenyra, starts to realize, like, hey, I can't really be queen with you around. I can't trust you. And he just refuses to submit. So, and this is something that Rhaenys predicts. Really, she predicted last season. She understands. And I think Rhaenys and Corlys kind of know that both sides like are losing sides, but like once they, obviously they're looking for one side to lose a lot less, but they understand that the shitstorm is coming. So I would absolutely pay attention to every conversation, every look that Corlys or Rhaenys have with any character in this season.
Yeah, I can't argue that. There's a reason for having them speak, however brief it may be. But one thing I'm a little unsure of and interested, I'm going to ask you this. We were introduced to a character who was petitioning before the king about his sheep or his goats that were taken, and they kind of brought him back in this episode, showing his household. He's got a sick child, it appears, and they're talking about what the king had promised and what have you. And I'm like, I don't remember this person having any significance in the book, or is this just to show what's happening amongst the small folk?
I think it's like that. It was such a throwaway scene to me. I don't believe that was the sheep herder guy. I think that was the one complaining about the blockade, the ships.
Okay. Yes. Yeah. Either way.
Yeah, I don't think there's any significance other than like, hey, this rolling theme of everything that happens at the top happens to us at the bottom. And I think the small folk, well, I know the small folk will play a large role as the season progresses. So like the temperature of the small folk, how they're feeling about the crown, how they're feeling about the other side. Like these things will kind of switch and go back and forth. So I think it is important to kind of like highlight and, visualize the hurt that they're going through because of a conflict that they have like literally nothing to do with.
Right. And then on the heels of that, we get the scene of the rat catchers who are on display around the keep, it seems. So yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. And then one other scene that didn't have a whole heck of a lot going on is Alan of Hall, as the captions put, and then his brother Adam, and just having that conversation of, oh, Corlys Velaryon, praise you for what you did, and he owes us something. No, like he doesn't. It's like, yeah, he does, and that kind of thing. So that was interesting too.
Another one is going to pay off later.
Yeah,
like, they have to introduce you. There's so many fucking characters, and like the names, and like
it's crazy.
We're about to add probably a lot more characters if they stay true to the book. So like they have to introduce. They have to introduce and like let you know, hey, these people are important. Here's why they're important. So when they, that significance pays off later in the season, like it doesn't just pop up out of nowhere.
And that will absolutely be true once we finally get to Harrenhal, because Daemon's going to meet a certain somebody that's going to be pretty pivotal in the wars to come. So, yep, let's get it.
Do y'all think that's next week?
Daemon and Harrenhal should be next week. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I think they probably will expand a couple of episodes of him at Harrenhal, just because there's the way that the pacing has been going thus far. I'm pretty sure they're probably going to put some real focus on Harrenhal, just because Rhaenyra at some point in her conversation with Daemon talked about how Harrenhal needs to be won and all will be forgiven, or something, or someone said something along those lines. I can't remember who specifically said that, but Harrenhal needs to be won by Rhaenyra's team because of all that's already been spread across the realm. Rhaenyra the cruel, Rhaenyra the kinslayer, Rhaenyra this, Rhaenyra that. So yeah.
Okay, so let's get to final thoughts. Tristan, what do you take away from this episode?
I mean, the more we talk about it, the more I like the episode. Like the more I want to kind of race the rankings. Again, I love the episodes where you see how all this dialogue and how these conversations and how the interpersonal beefs and conflicts play out into the larger war to come. And we need those things because this is how wars start. And it's how wars end. And we're also seeing the thing that plagued the Targaryens from the jump in this story is just like a lack of trust and lack of communication. And also like a lack of centralized competent power. Looking at you, Viserys. And like these things just keep playing out in a way. So yeah, like the more you think about it, the more you kind of, okay, like this is more of an 8 to me. high 7, whatever. But I like it a lot more we talk about it.
Yeah, I see where Tristan's coming from. It's still, for the time being, going to rank where it currently is for me until we get more episodes, until we get more story development, character development, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, I always enjoy getting on here, talking with y'all, talking with those in the live chat to get those different perspectives and further clarify some things that are happening.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to see how this continues to progress. And sounds like we got 6 episodes left in the season. There's still a lot of time left, so let's see what happens next week. So now you know what we thought about this episode. We want to find out what you thought about it. And Brittany, how can people let us know?
Well, as always, we invite everyone to join us here for our live chat as we go live immediately after the episode premieres. Yes, that's right. Justin said it at the top of the show. How did you put it? We want to be the instant what?
I mean, we're your place for instant reactions. We want to be your post-game show for House of the Dragon all season long. So
yes,
right after it ends on HBO or Max or however you watch House of the Dragon, hop over to the Watchers in the Basement here on YouTube and watch us react to everything you just saw.
Exactly. So just like King B. Johnson, Yesenia, Tracy, Amber, and I think there was a couple of other people here too. Sorry, I can't say the word. We had a couple of other people who joined us, and I apologize for not finding your name as quickly. Imperion here. Thank you all so much for joining us for today. We also encourage everyone to subscribe to this YouTube channel and hit that notification bell. That way you know the next time we go live, which for this week, it'll be 2 more times. That's right. We've got other shows that we're covering that include The Boys and Interview with the Vampire. So be sure to hit subscribe, hit that notification bell. That way you know the next time we go live. And also don't forget to like this video. Helps out our channel. And we would love it if you also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Threads, all at Watchers Basement. And also use the same hashtag Watchers Basement to help grow our audience. And also, if you're not into video podcasts, we've got you covered with audio podcasts available to you on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Be sure to give us a follow there and give us a 5-star rating.
Thanks, Brittany. I appreciate it. So for Brittany and for Tristan, I'm Justin saying thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We will see you next time. Have a good evening. Bye-bye.